And I just wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about an item that comes up a lot, and it is about business planning and estate planning and the intersection of what you should do with real estate when you're making plans for the future. And there's a couple of misconceptions for people who own real estate. Obviously we kind of divide it into two categories. One is your primary residence, where you're actually living, residing, or intend to return home to, and all other property that you own. That could be rentals, that could be properties that you're using for Airbnb, whatever the case may be. So when we're talking about those types of property, a lot of people will ask, well, how should I have these properties set up? And my common answer to that, just as a general rule of thumb, is going to be that your personal property, your house that you live in, should be set up in some sort of trust. What a trust will do for you is it will make sure that your property avoids probate when you pass away. And depending on what your goals are with your estate planning, that trust is either going to also have asset protection or not. Now, when you want to layer in asset protection, I'm talking true asset protection, like if you needed benefits or you needed to apply for some sort of government program, or you got sued, that the creditor cannot get to it. So if you want asset protection, you have to give up some of your rights in that property. So for some people that makes sense. A common example of that would be if somebody is thinking about applying for Medicaid in the future to pay for care, whether it's at home care or in a facility care, and they're thinking they might need this because they don't have the income to cover the ongoing costs of care. Right now, it's roughly $10,000 a month for this kind of care that I'm talking about. So if you don't have $10,000 a month in income, planning ahead with asset protection for that can be a great strategy for your real estate, because once you put it into one of these asset protection trusts, the income and the underlying asset are both not looked at and not reachable by the creditor. In this case, that would be the government. There's also some people that put it in there for true asset protection in case they get sued in the future. Now, you can't put something in there if you already know you're getting sued, because you're basically defrauding creditors when you do that. Obviously, we can't do that. But if you just have a general scheme of wanting to protect assets, this same kind of trust can be used for that as well. Now, not everybody needs that or wants that, but they do want some protection in case they're sued for their real estate properties. They maybe still want to be in control, but they want a level of asset protection. In that case, we would generally want their real estate to be owned by their LLC. Now, here's another common misconception in this area. A lot of people think that when they buy property that, they're talking with their CPA or their accountant, and they're talking about how to structure stuff for tax purposes. What I'm talking about is asset protection, and those are two different things. So make sure that you're not confusing taxes, paying taxes, and asset protection, because while we're using some of the same tools, they're used in different ways and different things are important for them. So when you set up your, let's say you buy a piece of property and you want it to be a rental. So a lot of people might say, I need to put it in an LLC so I can deduct it on my taxes. That's not why you're putting it in an LLC. You can elect to take a deduction for your business activities on your taxes, even if the property is in your own name. The reason why you put it in an LLC is because you want asset protection in case you're sued for something. Now, can an LLC protect you against all lawsuits? No. And a lot of people who have their LLCs sued are also sued personally. But what an LLC can do, if it's done properly, is it can help get your personal liability taken off of that lawsuit. So for example, if Bob owns a rental property and he puts it in Bob's LLC, and something that is done with that LLC is done in a way that somebody gets hurt, okay? Maybe a contractor came in and did something faulty. And, Bob owns it, but, Bob's got a property manager or somebody else in charge of making, checking the condition of the property. He really just owns it. Well, by having it in LLC with proper structure, Bob's liability could be contained to just his LLC. Now, if it's in Bob's name, Bob likely also has personal liability and he's going to be sued in his personal name, and that's where the liability flows through. Why that can be a problem is because if you are, you have other properties in your name, or if you have other assets, like you've got money in a savings account or a brokerage account, those assets can also be at risk in a lawsuit. So if they get a judgment against Bob for an amount that exceeds the value of what he has in his property, they can execute that judgment against other assets that Bob owns, and that's not what you want to have happening. So a common misconception in this area is that all you have to do is go down the Secretary of State's office or do it online and file for an LLC, and now you're protected. And some people will say, well, and I got an EIN number. Well, that is step one, but you don't stop at step one, but a lot of people do. So if you went down and you registered an LLC and you got an EIN number and you did nothing else, and again, sometimes accountants will do this for you, but you don't have the legal documents that show why there should be no liability to you personally, then later if your LLC gets sued, there's something called piercing the corporate veil. And it's really easy to do if all you did was register your LLC and you didn't keep up with any of your corporate formalities the way you're supposed to. So if this is you, if you have an LLC that you filed and you haven't done anything else, or you haven't done anything in the past year, like you set it up a few years ago, 5 years ago, and you haven't thought about it since then, you're not keeping up with it. You probably don't have asset protection. And that's the whole point of it. So what you need to do is you need to find an attorney who is experienced in this, the estate planning and the corporate or company formation side and the asset protection triangle. These things all work together to protect you. Now, what else should you be looking at from the estate planning standpoint? So even if you did get an operating agreement, maybe you went to a business attorney or a planning attorney for your company. Well, a lot of times they'll draft you an operating agreement. And maybe they'll give you all the stuff that you need to be doing to keep up with your corporate formalities. But likely what they didn't do is they didn't make sure that your business interests will pass to who you want it to pass without going through probate. And that's the magic sauce. So if you really want to do it right, you really want to have value, you really want to make sure this is easy for your family, you're going to take care of all of these steps. So let me recap those steps for you. You need to have your property in an LLC for asset protection purposes. Remember, you can deduct it on your taxes whether or not you're keeping up with your LLC. And just because you're deducting it on your taxes doesn't mean the LLC side of it is done right. Your attorney is the one that handles that LLC and asset protection side of things. You have your LLC set up. The next step is going to be making sure you're keeping up with the corporate formalities of your LLC. Just filing is not enough. You have to keep up with on an ongoing basis with your corporate formalities. Our clients that come into us, we give them the forms that they need to fill out. We give them instructions. We also offer a service where we can help them keep up with it to make sure that they have this ongoing asset protection. And then the third step is going to be making sure that your operating agreement, if your companies are structured inside of LLCs, that operating agreement has the language in there to make sure your property doesn't get stuck in probate. What if you have a bunch of properties? What if this is the income that somebody's going to need to live off of, or that you're using to provide income to a spouse or children or somebody with special needs in the future? You don't want this getting tied up in probate. So if you're doing good planning, you're going to have that trust set up for you and probably your primary residence. Your rental properties are likely going to be structured into one or multiple LLCs depending on the value, the net value of those LLCs. And then those LLCs will have provisions in there so that it bypasses probate and it goes to who you want it to go to, and probably in default your trust. So a lot of important points. make sure you can check those 3 big items off when you're sitting here looking at this or thinking about it. And if you can't check all those off or you're unsure, then you probably want to schedule a consultation. Lawyer Lisa would love to help you with this. If you're in South Carolina, we can help you. If you're not in South Carolina, we can help get you recommendations for somebody that can help you. So if you like this, check out our other videos. Keep checking back and see what else we have to kind of help you through this. And if you have more questions or want to learn more, please visit lawyerlisa.com, and we have all kinds of information on our page about this and a lot of other things that you can be doing to make sure that you and your family are set up. Thanks and have a great day.